Hey guys, the Super Review Show for another episode of Why You Should Watch. This is the show where I break down movies and TV shows that have significant meaning to me, and the movie or TV show is just that good, or the series of films is just that good. You should definitely check these movies out no matter what. And here I am today talking about one of my favorite franchises of any movie ever, the Indiana Jones franchise. This series of films started in 1981 with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it started out in, like I said, 81. Then 84 was Temple of Doom, which I really liked. Not many people like it for whatever reason, but it's a really solid movie overall. I like it. And we talked about this on Mixed Bag. It is the movie that caused PG-13 to happen, like the actual rating. Then there was, in 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Last Crusade is my dad's favorite movie of all time. My favorite movie of all time is the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, they did the two sequels. They did Kingdom and the Crystal Skull, which was like, all right, it was okay. I mean, I liked it. It was not what I thought it was going to be, though. Like, looking back at it, it's like, it's not bad, but it's not great. And then they just had Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the final send-off for the character of Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford playing the role. This series has been going on for a long time. The fact that they made a fourth and fifth one kind of shocks me, because they wanted to do. I mean, if you look at the first three films, it's one of the best trilogies of all time. They did a fourth one, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I've gone on record and I've talked about this one. It's not my favorite. I'm one of the opinion that Dial of Destiny was a step up from Crystal Skull, actually. I actually really enjoyed Dial of Destiny quite a bit. I gave it like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10, if I'm not mistaken, watching in theaters. And it was the final send-off for the character. He retired and whatnot. Lived out the rest of his life happy. And it's... what's the word? It's a series of films. For those who don't know, Indiana Jones is an archaeologist, and he goes to find hidden treasure. And there's villains like the Nazis come out of, are enemies of him, or certain other scientists. It's a really, really rich universe for that character and that world. There's been spin-off books. There's been spin-off games. There's been like other stories like Indiana Jones and the blah, blah, blah. Indiana Jones and the blah, blah, blah. There's been other stories with him as the character. Even the game, Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, was great. I loved that game so much when I was younger. Regardless, though, back to the movies. It all started with those first three films, and really the first one, if you think about it, because then the whole franchise took off from there, like the comic books, video games in the 90s and 2000s and whatnot, and Lego games. It's crazy how time flies, and the whole franchise came out of one movie. I mean, thanks, George Lucas. I'd be lying if I didn't think that Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie of all time. It's a 10 out of 10. It's an 11 out of 10. It's a perfect movie in my opinion. Perfect film. Truly a story of an archaeologist of good versus evil. Finding the Ark of the Covenant, a classic story. And it's one of the best movies of all time, too. Not just opinion, it's widely regarded as one of the best movies of all time. Just saying. Thank you, Spielberg. Thank you, George Lucas, and thank you, Lucasfilm, of course. But besides the point, though, why should you watch the Indiana Jones films? Well, if you've never heard of it, if you've never seen these movies, they are some of the best adventure films ever made. They're some of the best action films ever made. Harrison Ford playing the role has been a timeless classic. They're some of the best films ever made. And I'm not just saying that because, it's the whole franchise thing or whatever. No, they really are regarded as some of the pillars of Hollywood history. Those first three films, and then the fourth one came along, and then the fifth one came along. But, when you really break it down, those films are iconic. Iconic, without a doubt. But why should you watch them? Because aside from me saying that they're the greatest films of all time, they are just really solid films overall. If you're looking for a movie that is a series of films that is adventure films or action adventure or some not really sci-fi, but like some other elements in there, like Temple of Doom had horror elements. It also had like The fourth one had like sci-fi elements to it. The fifth one had like somewhat sci-fi elements to it. Just all are great films overall. Now, do I think there's one really bad film overall? No. Personally, I don't. I think that they all have their own meaning in their own significant way. Truthfully. But yeah, Indiana Jones, one of the best franchises of all time. If you've never read any of the books, by the way, just get on that. There's some other great books out there, like Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone, Indiana Jones and the White Witch. There's other ones like that too. Also, I want to mention this too. The reason that the first one came about was because Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were big fans of like in the 1930s, like this thing happens, and then this thing happens, and this thing happens, and this thing happens. Let's make a movie like that. And they took George Lucas's imagination, Steven Spielberg's creative direction, and they created a character known as Indiana Jones, who is just an iconic, film character. Period. I mean, they had like the history of them is like of him is like, in the 30s, an archaeologist, and he's doing his thing, and he is like just. It's a really great story. If you've never even go back and look at some of the research on how they made this movie, like it was based in the 30s or 40s about like a serial films. They took that idea of like, this thing happens, then this thing happens, then this thing happens. Let's make a movie like that, and they did that, and they became the whole series, the whole franchise. So, but I'm a big fan of this franchise. I still love it to this day. And that's why I think you should watch the Indiana Jones film. So if you like what you see here, subscribe to this channel, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Don't forget to follow our social media pages as well, simply at The Super Review Show. But for all of your why you should watch videos and many more, keep it locked on The Super Review Show. The J-Man is off to rock. We'll see you guys later.